welcome to vlog number 59, heading right close to 60. This is the vlog where I talk about quarterly stories, which is my graphic novel that I handwrite, hand letter and hand ink, and then hopefully hand to you someday in print. And until that day, it is serialized online for your reading enjoyment at quarterlystories.com. And I highly encourage you to, if you get curious watching these vlogs, check it out. You can read all the way up to page 47, which I am now working on. You can read up to that on the site. And right now I'm heading to work. As you can see in my last vlog, I was up fairly late working on some freelance that I took on, but also trying to stay consistent with working at least 30 minutes a day on my comic. And generally, what I try for even more than 30 minutes a day is finishing a panel a day, whether that's penciling a panel or inking a panel. And if I'm not penciling a panel or inking a panel, generally what I'll be trying to do is thumbnail an entire page, lay out an entire page, or do photo reference. So those are usually what I split my days into. And last night, I ended up, up pretty much to around about 1 in the morning. And, once again, not my favorite thing to do, but I'm actually pretty excited that I actually managed to keep it together and get that comic done, because it took a lot of self-discipline after working for about 8 hours on Sunday on my freelance to sit down and knock out more of my comics. So I'm hoping I have a similar amount of self-discipline tonight when I get home to knock out pencils for the next panel. So that's got me thinking about the idea of conditioning yourself and training and teaching yourself self-discipline. That's something that I had to learn the hard way as an artist, working on my own personal projects, and part of what made me get better at it was basically when all I was doing was freelance. So I'm a full-time father, a full-time art director, a full-time husband, and what that means is there's a lot of time that I don't have to allocate to personal projects. And it's kind of that way by design. Now, prior to that, if you followed this vlog, you'll know that I was a freelance illustrator running my own business for about 15 years. And one of the things that I learned the hard way through running my own business was that if you don't set specific goals and specific dates and specific deadlines for yourself, you're not going to get very far and you're not going to get very much done. By the end of the year, you're probably not going to meet the amount of money you need to make a living. So self-discipline, especially when it's your own investment, your own money on the line, becomes a really valuable tool. On top of that, if you're wanting to not just make a living as an artist, but you're wanting to make a living as an artist and have enough time to work on your own art, it gets tenfold more complicated trying to carve out that window of time. So one of the most brilliant solutions to that I've found, and it's definitely not unique, but Kevin Cross, my friend, talks about this as the 100 Days Challenge, which is to carve out like 30 minutes a day to work on your comics. And when I used to live in Long Beach, I have a friend named Chris Cawagua, who we used to do like illustration nights where we would, at irregular hours sometimes, just hang out and work on comics, because we understood that if we didn't carve out those windows of time for personal projects, they just really wouldn't get done, because unfortunately prioritizing paying work is always going to happen. And really the only way to make time for any project is to just commit to a time. So, if you feel like your schedule is overwhelming and it's impossible to get whatever it is that your dream is to do, I think you're really underestimating the ability of self-determination and self-discipline. And by self-discipline, I don't mean like you're like a monk who's going to whip yourself if you don't work on your artwork. But What I do mean is that by repeating a behavior on a daily basis, what you're doing is training, you're conditioning. And so just like working out, at first it's very difficult, and maybe you're working your arm muscle, right? And so you go home and you do 10 reps, and you carve out the time to do 10 reps, and you tell yourself, like, next week I'll do 12 reps, and then the week after that I'll do 15 reps. And so what you're doing is gradually conditioning your body and getting used to working out, which I don't do at all. I should, but for me that's a lower priority than my own comics, and maybe it shouldn't be. But the point being, what you do with personal projects is the same thing you do with any personal self-improvement that you want to do in your life. You make time. And how you make time is by starting with small, little chunks, little tiny achievable goals, and then you gradually expand those goals. And the next thing you know, once you're like 6 months in, you've ingrained yourself with a habit that you can keep for quite a while. Now, why do I say like a habit that you can keep for quite a while? Habits need indulgence. And the easiest way to break habits is by breaking the consistency of the routine. Now, the funny thing about human beings, and this is just a weird thing that I've read and I've noticed, is that we get very addicted to bad habits. A case in point from my own life would be that when I was about 15, I picked up a cigarette and I lit it, and I tried smoking a cigarette, and I enjoyed it quite a lot. And from that day forward, I built a habit of smoking cigarettes. And before I knew it, my body had conditioned itself to smoke. And so that is a habit that I was unable to kick until probably about 33. So from 16 to age 33, I wasn't able to kick the habit, and I smoked about a pack and a half a day, which is a lot of cigarettes. I was a chain smoker and very addicted. And even now, I struggle with that desire to smoke cigarettes. So that's a bad habit. But a bad habit, generally, bad habits tend to have an addictive quality to them. And it's like an addiction that you don't have to put in as much work to build a habit out of, because generally, since it's bad for you, it has some kind of reaction to your serotonin, right? Like the chemical in your brain that makes you feel fulfilled and happy, temporarily. So a lot of these little like endorphin highs, like these little serotonin kicks, are very addictive to us. And so as human beings, like those habits that just give you very frequent kicks and endorphin kicks are the ones that become deeply ingrained because they're repeated quite frequently and then become an addiction. What is hard to do is something that's positive for you and allow that to become an addiction. And unfortunately, at least from my experience, the addiction doesn't necessarily stick to the extent like an addiction to nicotine would, or an addiction to eating unhealthy food would. It doesn't stick as strongly as that. So one of the things that is also essential to maintaining that habit, that positive habit, whatever it is, for me, I consider that working on my graphic novel. I think that's a positive habit. Why? It gets me closer to one of my life's goals. And so that's something that I thought was worth mentioning. It's like, not only, do you have to build the habit, but you have to maintain the habit with positive things in your life and positive habits. So maintenance basically means upkeep or repetition. And I think in this case, both are really important. Upkeep meaning you need to come up with a way to repeat your positive behavior enough to where you don't break the good habit. And good habits break quite quickly. If you're working out frequently and you take a couple of days off, you're going to start noticing more negative talk that's basically convincing you to give up the game altogether. If you're working on art, and especially writing or creative artwork, if you take a day off, the next day it will be much more likely that you find it a lot more interesting to watch TV, or a lot more interesting to do whatever it is. And there will be a million things that tell you to pay attention to them, and there'll be distractions, things to keep you from doing positive things. In The War of Art, Steven Pressfield, who wrote this brilliant book about writing and working on personal projects, which you should all read. It's a really great book. Steven Pressfield calls this kind of thing, like once you've built a positive habit and then you take a day off from that positive habit, that sudden desire to do anything but that positive habit that hits very strong, usually the day after you've broken from your positive habit. He calls that resistance. And generally, his theory is, and I tend to agree with his theory on this, is that basically anything good in life, anything that is advancing your life or benefiting you or has the potential for great growth, whether it's spiritual or emotional growth, anything that you pursue that's going to lead to spiritual or emotional growth will be met with resistance. And he capitalizes the word resistance. And the way that he describes resistance is anything that gets in the way of you getting your thing done, whatever it is. And so part of creating art, or creating your own art, is overcoming resistance, at least in Pressfield's theory. And I agree with it. My own personal experience has been that whenever I try to take on a personal project, it seems like everything in the world gets in the way of that personal project. And the more I get interested and involved and engaged in what I'm doing, the more that I experience resistance. And the more that it's my responsibility to fight that resistance so that I can continue pressing forward towards the goal of creating my own artwork. So, anyhow, that's something I've been thinking about today, because I feel like this morning, I feel a little bit of a sense of accomplishment, because I feel like I overcame resistance last night. Now, when it was about 9 o'clock, as you can see in my last vlog, and I had finished and spent all day, all weekend, kind of working on this t-shirt design for a client, it would have been very easy for me to rationalize not spending my time on my comic as I built a habit to do every single day. It would have been very easy for me to say, I am tired, this is time to go to sleep. I have work in the morning, it's just not doable. It would have been very easy for me to kind of deny moving forward on my project. And what would have possibly happened had I given into that voice is that today, that voice of resistance would be even stronger. Because creating art really is like a war, which is Pressfield's point, and I completely agree with it. You're at war with resistance. So whatever it is you're trying to achieve, whether if it's creative, generally the greater the thing you're trying to achieve, the more heavy resistance you're going to find. And much like a war, resistance, once it's won a battle, like for instance, if I had given in yesterday to resistance and not worked on my comic, what you're going to find is the next day that resistance has grown stronger. And part of why it's grown stronger is it had a victory. Now, what you are aiming for, because you will grow stronger as artists, is victory over resistance. So that's a long-winded way of saying I am very stoked that yesterday I didn't give in to exhaustion and excuses and not work on furthering my goals. I actually pressed forward and got them done. And I'm pretty excited about the fact that I did that, because it gives me more hope and more strength for today when I get home and I have to do the same fight against resistance all over again. This might sound like a kind of narcissistic point of view, and one could argue that it slightly is. I mean, you're trying to do something creative, so you're experiencing resistance. Why are you so special to experience resistance? But if you think about it, and if you've experienced trying to do creative projects or make any time in your life to do anything positive, and you've experienced that resistance firsthand, most people who've tried would acknowledge that there is this strange unspoken thing, maybe it's in our subconscious, maybe not, that's trying to prevent us from doing good things, positive things for ourselves, for society, for the people around us, and especially with art and creative things. So, that's a long-winded vlog on resistance, but I thought that it would be good to kind of bring up, because that's something that I feel like I overcame yesterday, and yet, once again, this is a war making art. Resistance doesn't just go away. It looks for opportune times, and it gets more and more clever the further you get into making art. Because once you've built a habit, it's kind of like you almost want to view it as like an enemy that's been defeated on the battlefield multiple times and is now looking for tactical ins, tactical times where they can get brief victories and maybe make some ground and maybe eventually win back one of the areas that you want to battle. So you want to think of it in terms of war. If you have just gained tons of ground over an enemy, do you really want to give a little at some point? Because the second you give a little, the enemy is going to get momentum. And the enemy, once they get momentum, will be able to take back some ground. And if they take back enough ground, the next thing you know, you're on the defense rather than the offense. And the next thing you know, you might possibly be losing the war. And frankly, I am very conscious of this because I have had times in my life where I very much lost the war. Part of how I lost the war of creating art was that I didn't quite acknowledge or understand that it was a war, and books like The War of Art helped. And by the time I was at the point of reading that book, I'd already started trying to wage the war and wasn't quite fully comprehending the fact that it is a war. It's a battle, and it's not for the weak. And I think, frankly, that it's a battle worth fighting. But much like any battle, it's not going to be met with encouragement all the time. A lot of times, when you take on this war, you might have to take it on your own, all alone, and overcome every kind of resistance you can think of in order to get your artwork finished. So anyhow, rambling, but for some reason, me feeling that victory yesterday over resistance made me want to share it with you guys, got me thinking about that book again, got me thinking about how, a lot of you guys might also be experiencing this war with resistance. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comments section. Like, have you ever considered what you're working on as a war? Does it help you metaphorically to think of it as a war? Like you're a general having to fight these battles against resistance. Did I explain it poorly? If any of you guys have read The War of Art, did I properly kind of get that explained? Or, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I left out, but let me know in the comments section. Now I'm going to get to work, and then hopefully I'll be able to wrap up this video showing you the finished penciled page of page 47. But we'll see how I do in my battle against resistance today. Honestly, I might get home and be so exhausted that I have to sleep. Maybe I overdid it. We'll see. But that's all part of the war and the battle, and I will see you guys after I show you the clip of page 47, finished pencils. Alright. Hard day at work, heading home, hopefully gonna work on comics. We'll see. But one of those days where, because I, got to bed so late, I'm just not looking forward to the drive. And that's just honest. So I just finished penciling page 47, which is pretty awesome because I was pretty exhausted when I got home. And one of the things that I was just discussing on the drive to work and on the drive home was overcoming resistance and working on personal projects and viewing it almost like it's a war of art. Kind of like that Steven Pressfield book where you are trying to overcome resistance and it's like a battle. And if you give room for resistance to prevent you from, moving forward on creative projects, you're going to end up losing the battle and possibly the war of art. So anyhow, in line with that, today I got home, I overcame, and I actually finished penciling page 47, and I'm going to show that to you guys right now. Okay, so here is page 47, finished and ready to ink. And so it's the sequence that I thumbnailed a few vlogs back, where it's going to be the character, and there's this darkness creeping in, darkness creeps in even more, closer shot,
Darkness is starting to fill the background. Darkness has now gone to the character in the background, starting to creep onto the character in the foreground, and the final one is blackness. And I think I mentioned this already, but I'm probably going to be using some interesting inking techniques, and I love approaching a page like this because there are some things I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to execute, and that always leaves you with some interesting creative territory. So that is page 47, pencils done. Page 47 is finished, and now I want to just say thanks to those of you who've liked, commented, shared, and subscribed to my channel. It means a lot. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscription down there, and I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will talk to you guys later. I hope you guys are winning in this little battle that we're waging every day. All right.